Is that my favorite tick villain, El Cid? Oh, man, freaking out. Hey, I sent my wife flowers at work, but I didn't make a movie about it. Oh, just like me, this movie is a product of the SUNY system, and also nearly forgotten by time.
The most beautiful event in the life of a plant is the opening of its flowers.
So we're just diving right into the explicit stuff, huh? Okay.
Here we are seeing the growth of several tulips, speeded up by the use of the time-lapse camera.
Or perhaps E.T. is nearby.
Flowers contain the reproductive organs of our more highly developed plants and are very important. Flowers produce seeds, and seeds in turn develop into new plants.
It's called the circle of nature and
The tulip
things.
forms a bud which develops into the mature flower seen here.
I'm not mature, I'm ripe, baby.
Inside its cup-like structure are the male parts and female parts.
Oh, it's a side-by-side.
Flowers that contain both male and female parts are called perfect flowers.
Did they name themselves?
These are the stamens, the male organs of the flower.
Gross.
This is the pistil, the female organ of the flower.
Such a mystery.
Together, these are the essential parts of the flower because, in order to produce seeds, pollen from a stamen must reach the pistil.
No pressure, of course.
This tulip has been cut lengthwise to show its structure.
You killed it!
Petals are these conspicuous colored parts. These ends of the stamens are called anthers. Anthers contain pollen. The pistil consists of the stigma, the style, and the ovary.
Mom, Greg's drawing lady
Inside
parts.
the ovary are ovules containing eggs. When fertilized by pollen, these eggs develop into mature seeds. Pollination takes place in two ways, by self-pollination and by cross-pollination.
Alone or in pairs.
Here we'll watch self-pollination as shown by animated drawings.
Okay, but I didn't ask for this.
When pollen grains land on the sticky stigma of the pistil, they send tubes down the style to the ovary, which contains the ovules.
This is really none of my
Pollen
business.
tubes bearing male cells enter the ovules and fertilization takes place. With fertilization complete, the flower withers and dies. But the fruit continues to develop its bundle of seeds, each containing a tiny new plant.
Audrey 2 and Audrey 3 and Audrey 4 and
With the
Audrey
aid
5.
of the time-lapse camera, we can now actually watch pollination in a tulip.
Put the kids to bed.
Here the anthers split and twist, and some of the pollen reaches the pistil.
Oops.
This process
How
is
embarrassing.
called self-pollination because pollen from the stamens of the flower is caught by its own pistil.
This is completely natural and just part of growing up.
Most plants, including the pines and other conifers, are cross-pollinated.
Woohoo! High five!
These most ancient seed-bearing plants have small cones instead of true flowers.
Who you calling small, buddy?
Here is a cluster of the male cones of a pine tree.
Oh, you mean pine cones? Sure.
Each tiny sac is packed with pollen, which is discharged when the cone is disturbed.
Hey, cut that out.
These cones depend on the
Yeesh.
wind for pollination. Wind-pollinated plants must produce large quantities of pollen, since much of it is blown away and wasted.
Which makes God very angry.
When a branch is jarred, or the wind strikes it, the pollen streams out like yellow smoke and drifts through the air.
Wow, graphic.
Some of this pollen may reach the female cones. This transfer of pollen from the stamens of one flower to the ovules of a different flower is called cross-pollination.
Should we be in incognito
It will
mode?
take 2 years for these pollinated female cones to become full-sized and mature.
Cross-pollination is for reproduction and never for pleasure.
The structure of flowers varies, and so do the methods of pollination. In certain varieties of the lily, the pollen is incapable of fertilizing the ovules in the same flower.
Huh, I hadn't considered the lily.
Snapdragon holds its petals tightly closed, and only the larger and stronger insects can gain access. Its structure also protects the pollen from the weather.
And grabby humans.
Color and fragrance are usually associated with flowers that depend on insect pollination.
Now we're getting kinky.
In this iris, the petals are marked by brightly colored lines which lead toward the nectar cups hidden deep within the flower.
This feels like a trap.
The sticky surface of the stigma is on the upper side. When a bee enters, the stigma curls under and scrapes off pollen, carried on her back from some other iris.
Shut up, Iris.
Since the bee, during a single day, seldom visits more than one kind of flower, this ensures cross-pollination.
And cross-browser compatibility.
Inside the flower, a bee's back pushes against the anther and collects fresh pollen.
This is like a stag film for lepidopterans.
When she backs out, the stigma is pressed upward and the already pollinated surface is prevented from receiving pollen from its own stamens.
That was a close one.
The visits of insects to flowers are important both to insect and flower. The flower gives up its sweet nectar to the insect for food, while the insect carries away pollen useful in cross-pollination.
Later, baby. I'll call you, I swear.
Today, the growing of flowers is more than $1 billion industry, employing scientists and other workers who are constantly striving to improve coloring and fragrance of flowers through the development of new varieties.
Working on a sex farm.
Of all the flowers that man has cultivated and improved, perhaps none is more beautiful than the rose.
Well, there's an original thought. Show off. Seen it. A lot of bees are pausing it right here.
We have seen how pollen from a flower can self-pollinate the same flower.
Well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but yeah.
We have watched bees and other insects carry pollen from flower to flower, and have seen the wind aid in the same process, called cross-pollination.
But now it's time to get freaky.
We must rely on the processes of pollination for much of our food, as in flowering plants of corn and rye.
Hey, look, is that a catcher back there?
And for much of the beauty in our world. For it is from flowers that seeds are produced, and from seeds new plants develop, from generation to generation.
Amen. Flowers. Thank you so much for watching Fun with Shorts. This series is supported by Patreon and patrons like these wonderful people right here. They get early access to new episodes and exclusive episodes every month. Also, check out the updated funwithshorts.com for DVDs and merch and all the good stuff. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next time.